If you stop believing in the God who doesn't answer your prayers, maybe you should stop believing in that God. If you have a version or a picture of God that is something or someone that isn't a necessity in your life, if your view of God is a God who's not necessary for you to flourish and lead a full and thriving life, then maybe you should stop believing in your God who is so very small that he's unnecessary. Now, if you're someone who is losing faith in God, has lost faith in God, or just has your arms crossed to God and somehow you found your way into church today, I want you to know that you are not alone. And it's not just that unprecedented numbers of Americans have walked away from all religion and from all beliefs, but humanity has been disbelieving in God or the gods since the beginning of the world. For millennia, people have quit and stopped believing in God. That's nothing new. For example, once upon a time, the most sophisticated civilization in the world worshiped the sun. Once upon a time, the most sophisticated civilization in the world worshiped Zeus. Today, not many people worship Zeus. And the only people who worship the sun live in Wisconsin in February. Everybody else stopped doing that. People have been walking away from God since the beginning of time. Karen Armstrong was a Catholic nun, and she deconverted away from Christianity. She left the Catholic Church, she left the church, she stopped believing in God altogether. And here was her conclusion about why many people are just like her. She wrote, "Many of us have been left stranded with an incoherent concept of God. We learned about God the same time we learned about Santa Claus. But while our understanding of the Santa Claus phenomena evolved and matured, our theology remained somewhat infantile. Not surprisingly, when we attained intellectual maturity, many of us rejected the God we had inherited and denied that he existed." She argued, for many of us, including herself, our understanding of God remained infantile and never matured with our view of the world. And for that reason, people walk away from church, they walk away from God. Richard Dawkins is a new atheist in our modern age, and he's written several books, including The God Delusion, trying to argue for atheism and against Christianity. And he wrote something interesting about this whole idea. Here is his take in The God Delusion. He wrote, "We are all atheists about most of the gods that humanity has ever believed in. Some of us just go one God further." He says, hey, you Christians, you have a lot in common with atheists. You stopped believing in most gods that humanity ever believed in. You reject most gods that humanity ever believed in. So do we atheists. We just go one God further than you do. Now, here's what we want to do in this series, and here's what I want to do with the balance of our time today. I want to show you that when people leave or abandon faith in God, it's not that they're drawn towards atheism, it's that they're just walking away from what they believed or what they assumed about God. And what I want to do today is to persuade you that maybe Richard Dawkins was right. Maybe there's one more God that you should not believe in. My first goal today is to persuade you to stop believing in the God you don't believe in. To get you to seriously wrestle with this question, should you stop believing in the God you don't believe in? If you stop believing in the God who doesn't answer your prayers, maybe you should stop believing in that God. If you have a version or a picture of God that is something or someone that isn't a necessity in your life, if your view of God is a God who's not necessary for you to flourish and lead a full and thriving life, then maybe you should stop believing in your God who is so very small that he's unnecessary. Stop believing in the God you don't believe in. But my second goal today is to give you a warning. If you walk away from faith, if you have crossed your arms to the very idea of God, here's what you need to know. Non-belief won't give you what you're looking for. Non-belief, rejecting all belief in God, won't give you what you are looking for. Now, as a pastor, when I hear stories of deconversion and people struggling with faith or they wrestle with their faith, at many points I want to interject, and oftentimes I do. When they tell me they don't believe in God, I will say, so tell me more about this God you don't believe in. Who is this God you found so easy to reject? Who is this God that you have stopped believing in? And who taught you that God is like that? Where did you reach the conclusion that if there is a God, that's exactly what God would do? Now, I've learned there's different themes or different varieties of these gods that let people down. So I've made a list of them. And if you believe in any one of the following gods or versions of God or Jesus that I'm about to present to you, you should definitely stop believing in this version of God. Okay, here's the different gods I've heard people walk away from when it comes to faith. The first one is what I call security guard God or security guard Jesus. Security guard Jesus doesn't let anything bad through the doors. Security guard God doesn't let any harm come to you. Now, for some of you, if you grew up going to church, this was the defining characteristic of God that was presented to you. That God is good, and pray to him that nothing bad ever happens to you, and God's going to protect you. The question is, where did you get that idea of God from? Who taught you to believe in security guard God? Where did that idea originate, that God isn't going to let anything bad happen? Because if you read the Bible, Christianity began when the worst thing possible happened to the best human possible. When Jesus, the innocent one, was crucified on a Roman cross. That was the beginning of the Christian faith. Furthermore, his closest disciples were treated horribly for the rest of their lives because they kept telling people that Jesus rose from death on Easter Sunday. They were treated terribly by the Roman Empire. Where did you get the idea that God isn't going to let anything bad happen to you? So if you've lost faith in security guard God, good. You should stop believing in security guard God. That God does not exist. Second God I hear people stop believing in is what I call cosmic Butler God. This God is on demand. He will do what you want, how you want, when you want it, as long as you're a pretty good person and respectful of him too. So you pray, you say, God, I don't need much. I just need a raise. I just need a date. I just need a healing. I just need a way out of this jam. God, I want you to come through for me. Here's the question. Where did you get the idea that God is a cosmic butler? Who taught you that God is on demand and he is going to execute the entire unfolding of history in the way that seems best to you? Where did you get that idea from? It wasn't from Jesus. And it wasn't from any of the biblical authors. They say God is working out everything for his purposes, not for your purposes. And besides, if God was a cosmic butler, if he did everything we wanted, when we wanted, our lives would be a mess. They would be. If God gave, that'd be like giving a toddler everything they wanted. I mean, you would have been married to your 15-year-old crush. That wouldn't have worked out. And if you married your 15-year-old crush, I think that was a great choice. Way to go. But for the rest of us, I'm telling you, it would have been a disaster. And if God did everything you want, if God ran the universe according to your perspective, our lives would be a disaster. But I'm just telling you, you did not get the idea of cosmic butler God from anything that Jesus taught or from anything the biblical authors wrote. So if you lost faith in cosmic butler God, good. You should stop believing in that God. Third kind of God I hear about is this, golden retriever God. Golden retriever God is the God whose presence is always near to you. He is always close by. You always feel the presence of golden retriever God. And you became a Christian, but you didn't feel God's presence. God felt very far away from you. In fact, sometimes when you come into church, you see other people and you're like, okay, clearly they feel the presence of God. I mean, I'm just sitting here with my hands in my pockets, maybe on the chair in front of me during the song set, but that person, they're showing God how big their fish is. They're giving God a high five. Maybe even nice touchdown, Jesus. I don't know, right? They're clearly feeling the presence. Sorry, I shouldn't make fun. They're clearly feeling the presence of God, and you're like, I don't feel anything. Do you feel anything? I don't feel the presence of God. Here's the question. Who taught you you're always going to feel God's presence? Where did you get the idea that God is always going to feel close to you? As a sidebar, did you know you're least aware of the things that are most present in your life? Not once in the last week did you think to yourself, gravity is really doing its job today.